Hello, chess fans. I'm back with round two of a tournament I played in a few weeks ago. This game I decided to start off with e4, and I hadn't really done any preparation for this game because we were getting pairings just an hour or so before the round. So my opponent went for c5. I went for knight c6, and we saw a6. So I went for knight d3 because I just wanted to trick my opponent with move order. So here I played knight g2, and after d6, I pretty much have an improved version of a closed Sicilian, because after g3, what black really wants to do is play g6, and after something like bishop g2, bishop g7, for example, castles, and like knight c6, if we notice, this is kind of like the classic closed Sicilian position, except for the fact that a6 is inserted here, and a6 can be considered like a pretty useless move. For example, after d3, something like e6, they want to go knight e7 here. We already have time for bishop e3, and after something like knight e7, maybe d4 even. And here, like, okay, you just kind of wasted a move with a6. So instead of that, after g3, my opponent has to switch plans and go for b5. And I knew my opponent probably was, with this d6 move, wanted to play a Najdorf and was hoping for d4. So, okay, we got them immediately out of the Najdorf. I can be happy with the opening. So I play bishop g2, bishop g7, d4, takes, knight f6, castles. And if anyone is wondering, here b4 is not a really good move, and my opponent spotted that because I can go knight d5, and he doesn't win a pawn because, you know, the knight was defending the pawn here along with the bishop. There's two attackers. You might have thought that, oh, okay, I can go here and win the pawn, but after knight d5, I defend the pawn. For example, if e6, I even have this, because if you move the queen, then I can play e5, attacking the queen and the bishop at the same time. So if you didn't see that, like this, attacking the queen and the bishop, and here we'd be winning a piece. So after this, they'd have to take with the pawn, and yeah, all their pawns are horrible here. So instead of that, my opponent played e6, which is the best move. I played rook e1, and that's just aligning with the king. And here my opponent has to make a really big decision. So right now, after the move rook e1, I am threatening e5. And the reason I'm threatening e5 is because if I play e5 right now, my opponent could go for bishop takes g2, attacking my rook. So I got the rook out of the way, and now I'm threatening e5 with attack on the knight and the bishop. And if knight d5, I take bishop takes here, takes back. If you can calculate that, now the pawn is here, and the e file is open. So then I could take on d6. So obviously e5 is a big threat here. So now there's a few moves that my opponent can basically play, and they have to keep in mind that. So they can play e5 themselves to stop e5 whatsoever, but then after knight f5, they kind of wish their bishop was on c8 so they could get rid of this knight. Now d5 as a whole, and the position is generally considered to be really, really favorable for white here, so I understand why my opponent didn't want to do this. And knight bd7 obviously just loses to e5. So my opponent played queen c7, which is the main move here. And so here, you pretty much just want to target this queen. So obviously we can't go here or here. So let's just weaken the base of that. Open up my rook possibly. And now here, if b4, I can see that I kind of was a little bit familiar with this. So I have a lot of blitz games like this. And I know there's two things you can do here. You can either go knight d5, which, okay, we'll see in the game, or you can go for knight a2. So this is what I did against my opponent previously. So we had this sort of position in a previous tournament, and after a5 I went for c3. My opponent took, and I played takes, and here I won after pretty much a long struggle. I won the a5 pawn, and then I won the d6 pawn, and yeah, I was pretty much smooth sailing from here. So that's one way you can take advantage of this position after b4, but my opponent decided to play what I consider simultaneously a better move but also a worse move. A better move in terms of the fact that it does open my rook, but after b4 and knight d5, which is the sacrifice I'm going to go for, the c file often becomes open and becomes problematic. So here, I played the really shocking move, probably to a lot of people, which is knight d5. And you might think, okay, it's sort of a natural sacrifice to sacrifice your knight on d5 in these sorts of positions, especially in the Sicilian. But to do so in a 2-hour game, it is a little bit nerve-wracking. So I kind of knew this a lot from blitz. That's why I only spent around a few minutes here, maybe 2 or 3 minutes calculating the sacrifice. But that's maybe the importance of blitz. Like, you can not have to calculate these really heavy moves beforehand. And the idea pretty much is just to open the e file, and afterwards pretty much all of black's pieces are stuck. If we notice, black really wants to get d5 because then this bishop will, you know, have to be able to get out of here. Or the bishop will go here, in which case knight d5 wouldn't make any sense. So I have to strike right now, or I'm never going to be able to sacrifice. Because after something like rook takes a4 and like bishop e7, okay, you're never ever sacrificing again here. So I went for knight d5, and after takes, we noticed that bishop e7 would be impossible because knight f5 is a fork. And there's simply no way to defend the bishop unless you go for like knight g8. But if my opponent played knight g8, I assume that's just like a resignation, because, for example, even after bishop g5, they'd have to go f6, knight takes g7 here, and not queen h5. Oh, knight e6 and then queen h5, and this is mate, and this is plus 13. So yeah, my opponent couldn't go there, and they played king d8. And yeah, so I didn't really calculate that much. All I knew here was that I have bishop g5, and bishop g5 should be winning with the combination of pinning the knight and threatening stuff like knight c6, threatening stuff like queen e2, queen here. So now the engine really likes this move bishop d2, and the idea is to go bishop a5. Oops, sorry. The idea is to go bishop a5 just because of the fact that, okay, the knight can't really get the bishop on a5, and the knight doesn't really want to block because then I could take here and pressure the knight. So there's really no easy way for this threat to be basically parried. So for example, after knight b7, rook takes a4, something like knight c5 would lose the queen after bishop a5. And this is what the engine says is best after takes. Obviously, I don't think my opponent would probably want to go for this because material is slightly better for them, but their king is way worse, and this position is +5. So I went for bishop g5 instead. And here my opponent really has to not really think about much because they kind of have to go knight d7. And because if they do something like h6, for example, after takes, something like queen e2, I mean, this position is just terrible. I'm going to go here, and if here, I could probably even go for something like bishop h3, though maybe it doesn't work here. Maybe rook a3, rook e3 is even better. And yeah, this position is just horrible, so they can't really allow that. So they go knight d7. And here, I went for queen e2, and the idea is just queen e8 mate, because the knight can't take because it's pinned. And so I was hoping maybe the game ends like h6, queen e8 mate, and oh, it's a 14 move brilliancy. But yeah, my opponent played queen c5, which I think is the best move. And here I'm pretty happy at how I played here, because there is one game in the Masters database here between a 2275 as white and a 2300 as black. And the 2300 as black won this position, even though it is completely lost for black. Black is completely lost here. So I'm really glad that I actually didn't make many mistakes. I played this game on pretty high accuracy, and yeah, I managed to play better than 2275 handled this position. So I should probably be happy about that. So here the best move is there actually is a way to trap the queen here, believe it or not. So see if you can find it. It is really hard to find, but it is definitely possible to find if you try hard enough. So the move is knight c6. And now here in the game, I thought after king c7, I just had nothing. For example, I thought, okay, now I take, but now his king got out of the way. Queen b5, for example, is already equal. So that I didn't think could be good. But here you have a very nice move. Bishop e3. What? If queen b5, c4 is trapping the queen. A very nice tactic. And for example, the queen can't go here because of the knight. Queen can't go back because of the bishop. Queen can't go anywhere here because of the queen and the pawns. And they have to go here. And so here black would have to play rook e8, pinning this to the queen. In which case we can just move our queen out of the way, and the queen is still trapped. So the queen probably has to go for rook takes e3. And after rook takes e3, black is obviously losing here because, okay, now their white is not even down material anymore, and black's king is still wide open. So... And if you're wondering, for example, after queen d2, why queen b5 is not possible, it's because we have the move knight a7. And again, the queen is just completely trapped. Okay, so instead I went for rook takes a4, which is more natural. And here the only move to stay alive in the game is you need to trade pieces, and these two pieces, I guess, would have to be traded. So, oh, I kind of just spoiled that. But okay, here I played rook a5, a really nice move, because rook a5, I have a problem here. I need to defend my bishop, and I don't really want to move the bishop back, and I don't really want to trade the bishop, because then he trades one of more pieces, which, you know, I'm down a full piece. I don't want to trade. So here I played the nice move rook a5, and if he takes, I sort of take his queen after knight c6 with this fork, and if he takes here, I have the move queen e8, and I would win the rook. So a very nice tactic to find the game. Really the only winning move here. If you're wondering how the 2200 game here went, after bishop takes d5, the 2275 here played the really, really weird move, bishop e3. Of course, you did not want at any point to trade, to move your bishop back and to basically retreat when you're trying to attack. And here the black player won after something like bishop takes g2. And yeah, here they should probably take, but they sacked again, winning the queen. But this is a little bit too much material for the queen at this point. Black has 4 whole pieces for the queen. Yeah, so here black eventually went on to win this game. Obviously, anyone here would much prefer black. Okay, but instead I went for takes, and I found this rook a5 move. My opponent went knight d5, and here you probably don't have to take much of a thought. I mean, my bishop is now hanging because he defended his queen, so I had to get rid of the bishop. And after it takes here, I went for b4. And now here, according to the engine, the winning move is c4. And the reason is because after takes here, I get check and I win this, which is what happened in the game with a different position. The c4 pawn I don't lose the pawn in this case. Or my opponent could have gone queen b7, in which case here, white has simply a ridiculous move, the move rook takes c5. Now, whether I was going to play this and be down a full rook at this point, I mean, I don't think I'd find this. But after it takes, here's a sample line, queen e8, queen takes a7, queen b6, rook e6, king a7, knight c6, king b6, knight d8 with the rook attacking the king, and after king a7, queen takes b7 would be mate. And that's not the best moves for black, but this position is already +7, so yeah, doesn't really matter. So here I went for b4 instead, attacking the pinned piece, and my opponent took here. And here I'm supposed to play takes here, and then basically black is just lost because of how open their king is. Instead, I was kind of tired at this point. I mean, when you're down material, you're sort of a little bit scared. You're sort of a little bit eager to win your material back. And I think this is kind of true for pretty much all players. I can't just play like an engine and like keep this sacked piece for this weird compensation pretty much. So I decided to play instead queen e8 and win my pieces back. And here, white is really not down that much anymore. Again, after queen takes b4, often when you have crazy positions, it's good to look at the engine because the engine will show you ideas that you didn't even consider. And so here the best move again is to go here. Now I had not even thought about this move for a single second, and so now let's just see the idea. So that after queen takes c5 here, oh, you would think, oh, I have some forcing move, but it's just rook b1. I didn't calculate any of this, and I was just putting in some sample moves. King d7 looks natural to me to try to get the king out of checks. Here you would go queen b7, and okay, if king goes to the center, obviously that's not good, so block with the queen. And then after queen d5, threatening here and threatening rook b7, black is pretty much hopeless. Takes rook b7, king c8, rook takes a7, threatening queen e8 and queen e6 and queen e8 mate. So here they'd probably have to go king d8 to cover that. And after rook a7, there's pretty much no way to prevent check. And then here, check, winning this. And so also this is just the threat of just to win the game on the spot. So yeah, this is just a really weird game. Also, yeah, queen b7 here is, again, another threat. So just really weird to see that rook c5 is winning. Now, I don't even think a super GM would play the move rook c5 because it's just so clear that the move I played, rook a1, still winning. Black's pieces are all terrible. White's pieces are all good. And the position is difficult for black. So here black only has one move to sort of stay in the game. Here they're still completely lost. But after queen b7, queen e8, and something like queen c6, I could take here on f7. And that's what my opponent was really worried about. This is just a sample line. And notice that you have this tactic. This I did kind of see that I could take here because after here, check, there's pretty much no defense. If they go here, okay, this is just mate in a few moves. Something like check, here, check, and then mate. So that could happen. But instead, if they go to b8, then rook b1, and yeah, okay, I win the knight with check, and here, something like rook b1, queen a8 is again mate. So yeah, so I saw this sack in the game, and so that's why I thought I was winning. But apparently, after here, you can go for the move king b8. Now, I don't think a lot of people would play that because it seems like you're moving the king from the safe c file to a dangerous here, this file, and then the a file is even dangerous too. But apparently, you can get away with this. So instead, my opponent played queen b8. Not looking to allow my queen to get to a8, played queen d5, threatening on f7, and yeah, here my opponent pretty much finally cracked. So far, my opponent hadn't made the worst possible defense. It was a really hard sacrifice, so a very practical move by me, but yeah, here my opponent finally cracked. Here after queen b5, takes, we would have a direct transposition, and here they would again have to find the move king b8. But instead, after queen d5, my opponent finally just couldn't defend anymore and played knight e6, which is, I mean, for lack of a better word, a huge blunder, because after rook takes a6, now the game is pretty much over. I didn't have to think anymore, and at this point I was like, okay, finally I won. I can stop being nervous because I was winning the whole time. Now, whether I thought I was winning the whole time, I thought at some points he had equality, which apparently was just not true. I was winning the whole time. But yeah, I guess I sort of misevaluated, and being down a lot of pieces when his king is not getting checkmated is a little bit scary. So after queen b7, I mean, they don't really have a move here I can recommend. There's just nothing, because after king d7, queen c6 here, and that's sort of what the engine recommends that black should do. So yeah, just name any move if here, okay, I'm mating him or winning his queen like this, no matter what. So queen b7, and here I win his queen with this move, which is queen a5, and after king c8, I win his queen like this. And yeah, here I had mate in 12, which of course I didn't find, because I mean, who's looking for mate in 12? I went f4 to win the knight, and just to look at the conversion, I went queen c7, and queen c7 is just baiting him to make a mistake. So he has two moves. He can go here or here, and now if he goes here, I was probably gonna play like c4 or something, do nothing. Bishop e7. I'm not even sure what I would have done. Probably maybe play queen c8 to get the king back on f6. But instead, my opponent made my life easy, played king f6, which is what I was prodding for with the mistake, with the move queen c7, because after queen c3, now I win the rook. So yeah, the rest of this game, I just won a pawn and then just pushed my passed pawn, and here my opponent resigned. So this was a really nice game by me. This was probably my best game of the tournament. Now, I wasn't against the strongest player ever, but my opponent did play quite a valiant defense. They definitely did not give up at any point, and the position was very hard to defend. And apparently it was also winning by the engine, which most sacrifices aren't. But yeah, so just a really nice game. And if you like this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. And next week, I'm going to show you probably my highest rated result of the tournament. I drew against the 2350, so stay tuned to see that game. And I'll see you guys in the next one.